Houses have been built before, but never on this scale. 13 million over the next decade.
Because at the end of the day, I do want to go home. I want to drink a few beers, and I want to watch my football, and I want to have my backyard barbecues and celebrate the 4th of July.
And the problem to be tackled this time is the sheer scale of what's required. 1946, 330 new babies delivered every hour. That's one baby every 10 seconds. It's the baby boom, and they all need housing. 1 million acres are plowed under each year of the 1950s for housing plots. 3,000 acres a day. It's the birth of suburbia, the next innovation. Building houses outside the cities to give new families a new life. Farmland into family homes.
New York loses about 2 million people over that period. And it looks like people are just going to slowly kind of hollow out the inner city.
And they would buy a new, perhaps saltbox house in Levitt Town in New York, or its equivalent housing development across the country.
All of these icons of sort of 1950s domestic culture, suburban culture that begin to emerge during these years.
Levitt and Sons are family builders. They'll give their name to America's most famous post-war housing, the Levitt Town. Here on this Levitt and Sons construction site, they're building houses almost as fast as babies are born. One every 16 minutes. 8 a.m. trucks unload. 9:30 bathrooms arrive. 11 o'clock floors are laid. 300 windows a day. 30 baths a day. These techniques are inspired by the industrial age. 1840, Lowell Mills, Massachusetts. The manufacture of cotton is transformed by mechanized looms. 1918, Henry Ford's Detroit production line, the automobile revolution. Now, in the 1950s, America is mass-producing family homes. Levitt and Sons call it the Ford production line of house building.
This is human enterprise, human ingenuity, putting these buildings there. They were put there by free men and women making their own free decisions.
By 1951, Levitt Town, New York, has 17,000 identical new homes. A second Levitt Town is built in Philadelphia, a third in New Jersey.
My father grew up very poor during the Depression. He fought in World War II. It was a big deal for him to get out of a poor neighborhood and buy a 50 by 100 lot in Franklin Square, Long Island, where I grew up.
There was a feeling that the country now has achieved regained prosperity after the long decade of the Great Depression, which had made many people think that prosperity might never return.
A family home for less than $8,000. That's $71,000 in today's money.
Down to the eve of World War II, down to 1940 or so, only about 40% of Americans owned their own homes. By 1960, one short generation later, 60% of Americans owned their own homes. And that's just one way to quantify the spread of affluence and prosperity and all that came with that in terms of self-confidence and enthusiasm for the future.
The American home has developed since the Pilgrims into really the center of the family. The family is the most important social unit in the United States, and it should be.
Through the centuries, the family home has shaped America and showcased American innovation. Plantation houses built by stonemasons. Log cabins made from what's available on the land. Merchants' houses, the backbone for the early cities. Each time, technology has transformed how these houses have been built and where they've been built. Overcoming the extremes of America's climate. 1913, Los Angeles booms when the LA aqueduct brings in water. Without it, the city would have stayed an outpost. Now, it's air conditioning that wins the South. 1902, invented in New York. 1952, $250 million worth of aircon units are sold. Hispanic architecture had once kept the Sunbelt states cool. Now, it's aircon. In the 1960s, more people moved to the southern states than moved out after the Civil War. America's toughest landscapes opened up for housing.
California and Florida became states that were overrun with new people moving in and wanting to live a better life.